Hello and welcome to Buff Sports Live. I'm Vinay Simlot. It's a great day here in Boulder because the Colorado football team is starting to practice, and that's where we'll get started today. Boulder health officials just approved the athletic department's plan to start practice. Football, men's and women's basketball are all allowed to start. This was Karl Dorrell's first full practice as the head coach. He'll have 4 weeks and 24 practices before the season opener. We have some video from that practice that we're showing you now. There were quite a few changes for the Buffs this year. We don't know who the starting quarterback will be for this season. And Steven Montez graduated. The competition is in full swing. Aside from that, a new coaching staff got to install their system, and they saw it in real life earlier today. Now, after the football practice, Karl Dorrell said every player on the Buffs tested negative for the coronavirus. But the team will still quarantine in the hotel for 2 weeks, an experience Dorrell says he's very excited about.
Personnel at the hotel, there'll be some coaches there. I do have a room there as well. I'll be sporadic with my attendance being there, but we do have some coaches there to help, with keeping the process with bed checks and wake-up calls and making sure we're social distancing when we're coming down from the elevator and got our mask on and taking the correct path to get ourselves to our building. We're trying to discourage driving from the Millennium Hotel to the Champion Center when it's really in walking distance. So yeah, we're trying to organize a bunch of those things, and we have some coaching staff members involved in that.
Now, the return of the football program means lots of changes. The Pac-12 released its schedules for the abbreviated season on Saturday morning. The Buffs are set to play on November 7th against UCLA at Folsom Field. Then they'll play Stanford, Arizona State, USC, and Arizona, and then close out the season at home against Utah. The 7-game season includes 3 home and 3 away games, followed by the Pac-12 championship on December 18th. The Pac-12 coaches had their annual press conference this week, and Karl Dorrell was back with his Pac-12 colleagues for the first time in more than a decade. Here's some of what he said.
We're really excited that our conference and the members of our executive teams, got together and reconvened about an opportunity to play this fall. And I think all of us coaches and players alike are excited about get a chance to compete and play this season. I think it was right on time, given how the last few weeks we've been playing college football and other conferences. And I think as you can imagine, the juices and the energy and the adrenaline is starting to flow when you're seeing other people play. And I'm just very excited that our conference did reconsider and give us the opportunity to play this fall.
Now, Dorrell kept a top 30 recruiting class intact during a pandemic, returning every member of the 2020 recruiting class, even though Mel Tucker left. The roster is filled with youngsters and newcomers who could get the ball rolling under his leadership. But the Pac-12 writers don't necessarily agree with our excitement around the Buffs for the 2020 season. Colorado has seen 4 different coaches in 9 years, a ton of losses, and because of that inconsistency, finishing at the bottom 2 of the South Division 8 times in 9 years, the Pac-12 writers chose Colorado to do that again. They'll finish 5th out of 6 teams in the South. That's what the writers say. So why play the games, right? Well, during the pandemic, we all know people who have been affected. 2 Pac-12 coaches were part of that group. First is Kevin Sumlin, who has the coronavirus right now. He's in the process of a 2-week quarantine, but he says he's asymptomatic. Chip Kelly had COVID back in March and said he did have symptoms. Here's a little of what they both said about their experience.
We were extremely fortunate. My wife was a little sicker than I was. I probably only had really one day that I felt like I had a cold. My wife was a little bit longer, but when you hear and watch the news and listen, over 200,000 people have lost their lives from it. It is something very serious that we all have to take very seriously. And I think what I learned, early on in this process is you can get it at any time, even if you are being extremely diligent with it. So you have to be extremely careful with it. And it is real. It's not a hoax. It is a real deal.
I was tested last week, but it wasn't confirmed until this weekend. So, it's about a week into this thing. So, I don't have I don't have symptoms. Neither does my son. I get up in the morning and go through a checklist with him, how he feels, and he's in my office next door here doing his schoolwork, and I'm back here in the bedroom. So other than that, it's a tough time, but we're getting through it.
Coming up after the break, we'll get some news on the men's basketball schedule. It's finally out. Well, kind of.
Deserves a second look. Michael taking off, the patented tongue comes out. Just in front of that line. Look at this, the double clutch, the reach out.
Pass on left wing, looks behind him, wide open, right wing, up top, open for three, fires.
Really good basketball, Mark. Unselfish, smart basketball.
Open for three, fires, nothing but nylon from downtown. Good ball move by Colorado.
With the Pac-12's recent announcement about a transition to a basketball start date from January 1st to November 25th, CU's men's basketball team has their eyes on returning to official preseason practices. And more importantly, CU and Boulder County lifted their COVID mandates, as we said earlier, and they're finally letting the basketball teams practice to prepare for their upcoming season. Tad Boyle said they are foaming at their mouths and they're ready to go. I believe we are also foaming at our mouths, waiting to see Tad foam at his mouth. But we'll see. Now, the men's basketball team has compressed the schedule by moving back opening night to November 25th. This sets the Buffs up to a high-moving pace, but before CU starts Pac-12 play, Tad Boyle says they are just one game away from finalizing their 7-game non-conference schedule. He left out any details except that the Buffs would compete against the in-state rivals CSU at home, and Colorado will play 2 games in Manhattan, Kansas as part of a tournament. Former Colorado women's basketball standout Kennedy Leonard has officially signed a new professional contract with the BA London Lions in the United Kingdom. She's played for the Herner TC in Germany, averaging 11.7 points, 3.5 rebounds, and more than 3 rebounds per game. We wish her all the best as she moves to her new team. And while Kennedy Leonard is overseas, she'll probably have to vote by mail, something everyone here in Colorado does. Matthew Logan tells us how the athletic department is trying to get out the vote.
As we near Election Day in November, Buff Banner will be taking a closer look at the voting initiatives taking place in CU athletics this fall. Today, it's hard to go anywhere without being encouraged to vote. Whether you see it on TV, online, or in person around campus or downtown, voting this election has become a very powerful, prevalent theme. The same is true for CU and its many diverse athletic programs. CU has joined a long list of schools and athletic programs across the country in not only encouraging student athletes and peers to vote, but helping them engage in the process of voter registration. A recent trend to stimulate greater voter registration numbers amongst CU student athletes is for the individual programs themselves to report on the voting registration progress of their athletes. Both the men's and women's basketball teams have announced that 100% of their programs are registered to vote. Women's volleyball coach Jesse Mahoney also recently announced that his team was 100% registered to vote as well, with the same numbers being reported by many other athletic programs at CU. Alongside voting initiatives, CU Athletics has been engaging with D1 organizations centered around social issues. Women's basketball player Aubrey Knight was recently selected as a representative for the NCAA D1 Women's Basketball Student Athlete Engagement Group. The Student Athlete Engagement Group serves as an amplifying voice for women's basketball on key initiatives, legislation, and various issues. This group was formed in collaboration with the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, the first of its kind. The work that is being done by CU in athletics in programs around the country is incredibly important and successful. It should be no secret that our Buffs are ready to vote this November and are prepared with the tools necessary to have their voices heard in our country. Vinay, back to you.
And coming up after the break, we'll take you on a ride back through Buffs history. Stay with us.
They were nervous and inexperienced. As new faces looking to achieve greatness. As the years went on, they grew confident in their abilities.
Maybe. Yes, sir!
Now they look to guide others in the same pursuit.
There it is! Can you believe it?
All are welcome to be featured on the biggest stage.
Is it his time?
We invite you to discover what you're capable of at BuffSports Live.
We're back now on This Week in Buffs history. We take you all the way back to October 4th, 1924. That's when Colorado defeated Western State in football 31-0. This was the last game for CU at Gamble Field, the program's home since 1898. Gamble Field had a capacity of 9,000 fans on temporary bleachers and opened Folsom Field the very next week. CU had a 64-14-6 record at Gamble, which was named after Harry Gamble, who played for 6 seasons from 1891 to 1896. He was a 2-time captain. Now, coming up after the break, we'll get you the tweet of the week. Stay with us.
Please record in Mike and Q Talent in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mic up on 2. All right, take 1. And fade camera 2. Take 3. Ready, red. Roll red. Take cam 1. Take red. Take it. Come on, roll red. Let's go. All right.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm just calling the show.
There's no show.
This week's Tweet of the Week is about the women's soccer team's coaching staff. You can see on the left CU's assistant coach Jason Green, who played underneath CU's current head coach Danny Sanchez when they were both at Colorado Mesa. Green joined Sanchez on the staff at Mesa. The pair ventured to the University of Wyoming before settling down in the Front Range, where they have coached for the past 9 seasons. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Buff Sports Live. We're happy the football team is finally practicing. We saw the team out on the field, and we'll see you next week with more.